thank you, Alexander, for joining us for the meeting. And let's hear now about natural language processing extensions for the Allotrope Foundation Ontology. Alexander.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I was asked to do this, so I'm glad to give you first a brief introduction of our consortium, the NFDI4CAT, that you can see also beside of me right now. And afterwards, I will proceed with the introduction of the NLP-based extension of the Allotrope Foundation Ontology. So first of all, here you can get a quick overview on who we are and what we are doing and with whom we are cooperating, basically. So our consortium aims to develop uniform data standards and establish platform services for the catalysis science and catalytic related sciences. So we aim to come to ways for researchers to get to structured data, shared vocabularies, standardized data formats, basically the whole fair data ordeal, and to get this all in kind of digital platforms. And we not only do this in a kind of academic way, but we also try to incorporate industrial partners, for example, BASF, HGE, Clariant, Linde, ThyssenKrupp, Covestro, Evonik, and Linde, as you can see here. And we do all this in order to enable sustainable production of chemicals and the energy carriers. And yeah, I think I forgot to mention we are a German consortium that started 2020. And yeah, I'm from this NFDI4CAT consortium. Here you can see how many task areas we have, and basically what I'm coming from is the task area 1, which deals with ontologies and metadata development. We also have task areas dealing with metadata quality and management, data standards, information infrastructure, and dissemination, as well as networking and IP and so on. But yeah, our main focus, and when I'm talking about we, I'm also talking about Professor Kockmann, who's also in the auditorium right now, and about Henrik Borgelt, a colleague of mine from TU Dortmund University. We are dealing basically in our task forces with the ontology world map, for example, so a collection of ontologies relevant for catalysis research and for creation of use cases, persistent identifiers, vocabulary creation for our domains, and so on. And within this, we deal big time with terminology and ontologies. And that's the reason why I was basically invited here by Amnon, because he saw some of our works in form of a paper out there. Yeah, as I was told that my talk will be not only to an audience consisting of technical and scientific stuff, also semi-business people, I thought I would introduce a brief introduction on what ontologies really are and how they are structured. But I guess after seeing all the talks today, I'm a bit preaching to the choir here, so I try to give just a brief example on here. So basically what are ontologies? You all know this. They consist of classes and relationships between the classes, and we have some individuals which represent real existing elements. And also we have rules, others call them axioms, that can be used in order to store the rules basically and use them in an inference machine later on. So with this, we can infer new relationships between data points and classify data into new not foreseen classes, basically. So this would be the brief introduction to ontologies. And yeah, as we all maybe know, is that natural language is kind of a good way to to give knowledge from one person or one agent to another person or agent. But yeah, we all run into different problems in there. So there we can use a computation technique called natural language processing, where we can first of all tokenize sentences and split sentences and words into so-called tokens. This is shown here. And afterwards, we can also do some lemmatizing, so using the words, putting them into their base form. So in principle, reactors would be then the lemma reactor, and R would be the lemma B, as you can see here on the right. And also we can do something called part of speech tagging, which classifies each of the token found into one of the part of speeches, for example, nouns, verbs, prepositions, determiners, and so on. So you can also say, okay, I just want to have all the nouns and all the adjectives of the first put in sentence. And with this quite simple technique, we can get something like reactor continuous mode out of this first sentence here. Why is this important? When we first started with these investigations in natural language processing, we concluded that, okay, in ontologies often you will find something that looks like a noun. So maybe it makes some sense to use natural language processing techniques in order to extract nouns, especially nouns from somewhat texts, science texts, in order to extend existing ontologies. So with this, we set out and used a quite simple language model, which is called word2vec, which basically puts all the words that it found in the text space and puts them into a vector space. Here it was with 300 dimensions. And then you can basically train this model. And afterwards, you can calculate the similarity between some words. And with this, you can also use some other way called min count, so the minimal count, in order to filter the data afterwards, such that you only want to, for example, obtain words that were contained at least 3 times in your publication or whatever you're investigating. And in such a way, you could apply a min count, and then you would just filter out all the words that you really meant to search for. With this, we set out to a data set of 28 papers on methanation of CO2. And we found about 535 different words that occurred more than 10 times, so with a min count of 10 in our data set. And here on the top right-hand side, you can see a resulting dendrogram where we have listed for each word then the nearest other token, so to say. So with this, you can kind of see where we are going right now. It kind of looks already hierarchical. So we thought, okay, fine, we are done. We can now extend ontologies with this. But nope, it showed that when we investigated this a bit more, for example, here for min count of 500, so the word has at least 500 repetitions in our data set, you can see kind of good that this approach would not directly help us. This has, for once, the reason that only 2 concepts at a time could be combined as siblings with this approach that we used, and also the semantic similarity that is detected by word2vec is only to an extent useful for us. So you can see here, I mean, gas and temperature, they might have something in common, but you would expect gas and CO2 be more close to each other than gas and temperature in here. So yeah, we're kind of disappointed, but we said, okay, maybe we can do something out of it anyway. And so we tried this approach where we started with the text extraction and extended our word2vec model basically trained our word2vec model basically as I've shown to you before. And also took our extracted tokens and searched for the definitions of tokens in existing ontologies. So we basically used the token that were put out by our natural language processing tool and searched, okay, are some classes already existent in existing ontologies or thesauri and so on that have the same label, that have the same name or something like this. And with this, we could already compile an intersection of the ontology classes and the respective token out of the text. So we could say, okay, from these 500, some token were already present as classes in these and that ontologies. And then the idea was, okay, if we have these classes that are already contained in ontologies, maybe we can extend existing ontologies by these classes that we found in other ontologies, for example, or by the token themselves that we found using the similarity output by our word2vec model. And with this, we kind of try to not only get new classes in our ontology, but also search for definitions and annotations in already existing ontologies and obtain an extended ontology. So what did we do then in more detail with regards to the annotation of the extracted token? Sorry about that. As I said, we first went through all our ontologies, loaded them in with some Python tool, and stored information in a nested dict. That's not that sciencey here, I would say. But then, what we did basically, we listed, and as you can see here, for example, for the AFO, for the Allotrope Foundation Ontology, for each class, our label and the textual definition and so on for every class that was contained in there, for every definition that was contained in there, and did this also to some other ontologies in the same manner, such that when we would put in a token into this, basically, we could directly search for the concept, so for the respective class that would have the same label as the token, and for the respective definition. And yeah, with this, we could get the token already contained in the ontology as classes, and also could annotate our token with definition strings. The benefit of this approach is, in our sense at least, that we can not only take a look at the token that are to be included in an ontology, so we can have direct user feedback and see, okay, is this a class that would be deemed sufficient or would be deemed important to our ontology that we want to extend. But we could also take a look at the output, basically, and see, okay, which token are already contained in the ontology as classes, so maybe which ontology fits best to our textual database. And we can also see how the token were annotated. So for example, was this token annotated in a way that we would expect based on the text that we have read? Or is it maybe an ambiguity and this word or this token means another thing, but was detected anyways in the ontology? So yeah, we exercise this with a variety of min counts. So with the varieties of minimal occurrences of the same tokens in our data set. And yeah, as you might expect, the rate of the annotated tokens that you can see here rises with a higher min count. So the more exclusive I get with the tokens that I want to investigate, the more tokens are annotated. This I would explain with the way how ontologies are usually defined and designed. Usually you would start with the most general concepts. And I mean, this is also the purpose of ontologies, to come up with general classes and so on. So it makes sense that the higher the min count, the more the token get annotated, because they might occur more often in ontologies. You can see also in the bottom here, a large table or matrix with for different min counts, the numbers of classes or the numbers of token that we found as classes in the respective ontologies. And here you can see that we not only investigated the Allotrope Foundation Ontology, but also several others like the SBO, CHMO, KB, BAO, and we also investigated two not ontologies, but thesauri, because they contain kind of plenty information. And especially when you're looking for textual definition of classes, they contain a lot. So the IUPAC Goldbook and the National Cancer Institute thesaurus, they both contain pretty many of classes, and their definitions are not really classes in an ontological way, but more or less words. So yeah, with this, we said, okay, where would be the optimum? And we deemed that this would be at 10%, because we have a quite good trade-off between the amount of token that are annotated and the rate of the annotation of the tokens, as you might see here. And then we also have seen, okay, at this min count, you can clearly see that the Allotrope Foundation Ontology poses an ontology that is not only semantically quite sophisticated, but also contains many of the classes that we extracted out of the text, many of the token that we extracted out of the text. So maybe this would be the best pick for our next experiments, where we try to extend this ontology based on information that we obtain from scientific publications. So this is how this result might have or looks like, for example, for the token of Catalyst. We compiled these experiments back in 2022, late 2022, beginning of 2023. So it might not be now the case that Catalyst was not defined, is not defined, because there back then Catalyst was not defined. And this is for our consortium, at least NFTI for CAT. You might guess it is a quite important class to have in an ontology. So we searched for Catalyst in all our ontologies, and there you get the hit, for example, that, okay, in AFO, this token is not contained, but at least in the SBO and in the IUPAC Goldbook, you get some textual definitions. So we could basically copy paste them into our working version of the AFO, which I was advised to mention here is not a reviewed version of the AFO. We just did this in our lab and have not published it in any way that it would interfere with your developments of the AFO in this point. So anyway, we were able to include new tokens with definitions from other ontologies, other semantic artifacts. And with this, we're able to, from our total number of 535 new tokens that could be added as classes into our AFO, we could at least annotate automatically 364 with definitions from different ontologies. And now if you look at the numbers that are presented here, you might see, okay, those don't add up to 364, those are more than that. And this is because, as in the example above here, you can see we have multiple tokens where we have multiple definitions. So yeah, we often have duplicities in our resulting ontology. But anyways, yeah, we decided to go with this and yeah, to see what we can do anymore. Sorry for that. And yeah, as I told you, we then used the AFO to extend the AFO by classes that would be suggested by Word2Vec. So we used these classes that were already contained in the AFO, these 96 classes, and used them as an input to our Word2Vec model. And if the token was already contained in the ontology as class, we could then get the closest n token. For example, we picked 5 tokens, so the closest 5 words to the word would be output. And if this token was already contained in the ontology as class, then we would add the relation that these two classes would have some conceptual relation. And if they would not be connotated, then we would add the token as a new class with a subclass of relationship to a newly introduced class Word2Vec concept, because we didn't want to interfere in an automated way with the semantics that are already implied in the Allotrope Foundation ontology. After adding, we also searched for textual definitions so that we could annotate the classes with the missing definitions, as I've shown you before. So basically, we were able to include new concepts and their relations based on the Word2Vec output. And also, we're able to, we intended this workflow to be used in such a way that expert user later on can take a look on the extended ontology and say, okay, this connection makes sense, this relationship does not make sense, so maybe we want to delete it, so revision is in any way here possible. So because this is kind of abstract, I want to show you here a brief example on how this looked like in within the ontology. So you can see here one branch of relations of classes, sorry, from the hierarchy of the Allotrope Foundation ontology, running up to the concentration class and the rate class. And for example, the token flow was found. And this was quite interesting for me because from my education, I'm a chemical engineer. So flow, yeah, I have something to do with this from my experience. So we picked this. And you can see here that the algorithm not only introduced the class flow based on a label it found, but it also introduced the comments that it was created automatically based on the input of the concept name concentration and of the concept name rate. And because of those two automated creations, these relationships here were formed, conceptually related to. So we have now introduced a new class flow that has something to do with the class concentration and has something to do with the class rate, at least based on the textual knowledge that we gave the Word2Vec model to take a look at. Last but not least, we also introduced automatically textual definition, which was taken from the NCIT here in this case, the continuous movement characteristic of a liquid or gas found in NCIT. So this could help in later stages, maybe ontology experts in weeding out this automated introduced information and to see, okay, what could be next candidates to our ontology. This was not the only thing we did there with natural language processing, because we also were a bit unhappy because it was not that semantic expressive. So we then said, okay, maybe there are more ways in order to use ontologies and make automated use of natural language processing techniques in order to create knowledge graphs that are describing scientific literature. And for this, we used Catalysis IE. This is an information extraction tool, which is kind of a pre-trained AI application, if you want it that way, that is able to categorize extracted entities in 6 different categories. So it can more or less directly detect if we are talking about catalyst, a reaction, a characterization, reactant, product, or treatment. So basically can classify your textual data in advance. And with this, we came up with this workflow presented here on the right. So we start again with text mining of relevant entities, chemical compounds, and so on abstracts of scientific publications, on their titles, And yeah, we tried it also with the full text of scientific papers, but this is not only a copyright issue oftentimes, but also very time consuming. So we scratched that and yeah, took off with the abstracts and the titles. Yeah, in our consortium, we recently also published a large ontology collection, which was also a part of, yeah, integrated in this TIB service that we have talked about earlier. So based on our ontology collection, we also decided to use, again, the Allotrope Foundation Ontology, the chemical entities of biological interest, chemical methods ontology, and also the MOP RxNO. And yeah, with the text mining, we yeah, got, as I said, the DOI, the title, and the text of the abstracts and pre-processed all this. And afterwards, we're able to extend our ontologies with our ontology with classes, instances, and data types based on the things that we found in the text. And why would we do that? We would do that not only because we can, but also because yeah, we wanted to post Buckle queries and automated knowledge graph extension of existing ontologies in order to have a better overview on scientific literature and maybe get new data insights into the scientific literature in respective fields of catalysis research. So with this, we hope to get some kind of structuring of our data-based data of literature with respect to catalysis research in knowledge graphs that are based on ontologies. So what did we do? Basically, if you come up with some publication on catalysis science, you might have something like this here. I will walk through you what in principle our workflow does. And afterwards, we'll show you an example from Protégé from this resulting knowledge graph. So first, we would get some publication, which we would call as an individual in our ontology publication 1, which would be an instance of the class publication. And then our algorithm would detect, for example, this string here, rhodium-based atomically dispersed catalyst, which would be an individual in the first place. That would be an instance of the chemical substance class and would also be mentioned in our publication. This in turn could be split up even more. So our rhodium-based atomically dispersed catalyst would have the role atomically dispersed catalyst role, which would be in turn an instance of this class, which would have the same name. And this class finally would be subclass of catalyst role. Also, a rhodium atom might be mentioned in our publication 1, which would be also an instance of our rhodium atom. And with instantiation of these two classes, we would also be able to say, okay, this other string detected rhodium supported on silicon dioxide would have a support component silicon dioxide, which would have the role support role, and the other thing would have the role catalyst role. And the silicon dioxide would also be detected as an instance of the class silicon dioxide. Also, this would result in even more relations to our publication 1. Not only that the silicon dioxide and the rhodium supported on silicon dioxide would be mentioned in our publication, but also that this one would be an instance of chemical substance, as this one was not present yet in our ontology. Silicon dioxide was before present in our ontology, for example, in the KB ontology. So this would not be included automatically as a new class, subclass of chemical substance. Instance of some chemical substance. So how would this look in a real ontology? This is what you would roughly get for one publication, for example, here, publication 18. You would see that it not only mentions hydrogenation, it also mentions hydroformylation. You can see that it's mentioning something cobalt-containing catalyst that in turn has something to do with the cobalt atom and so on. So you get kind of good insight on the content of the publication. And for example, if you take a look on one of these automatically generated individuals of this catalyst, you not only see that might be a chemical substance, but it also was detected to have a catalyst role and has a catalytic component, for example, rhodium atom, cobalt atom, and a support on aluminum oxide. And this was, remind you, only detected based on the text that the algorithm has seen. And then afterwards, we did for sure some post-processing on this. So what can you also see within this knowledge graph, or what is also contained in there? In our publication individual, we not only list some random string publication and a number, this would be completely useless. We also annotate it with a DOI such that the end user later on can search for the DOI and view the whole document. And we also, for brevity, introduced the abstract as a comment in there. And if we found it, or if the API of Scopus gave it to us, we also included the keywords of the publication in here. Sorry about this. And yeah, for sure, also the title of the publication was included here as a data property. So to now show some of the uses of this, so this knowledge graph was set up basically automatically, like I told you before. We were able to use this knowledge graph to, for example, pre-formulate Sparkle queries that could answer wide width of Sparkle queries. For example, show me the abstract of a specific publication that would then just use the DOI as an input, and then you would get the abstract out of this. You could also pose competency questions like, I need all publications that mention the same reactions as in this specific publication. Or you could ask, okay, what reactions is this publication talking about? And then you would get these classes out of here. Or for example, give me the list of DOIs or publications that mention some specific reaction, and then you would get also a list of DOIs. And yeah, this is, we deem at least, quite useful for literature review and so on, and also for interconnecting literature-based knowledge in a knowledge graph. So yeah, we developed this tool for information extraction from publications of Catalyst. We tested it also on 2 data sets. The first data set contained 90 publications, the other one contained 26 publications. And with this, we included plenty of new substances based on other ontologies, for example, the KB ontology, but we also introduced new chemical substance classes for the first data set 53 and for the second 55, which will be needed later on to be manually curated in order to be introduced properly into our knowledge graph or into our ontology. Here you can see how many classes, instances, and so on were created. So quite a few. And with this, we were able to generate, as I told you before, automatically a knowledge graph based on catalysis, scientific literature knowledge, based on the Allotrope Foundation Ontology. And we also used this to conduct another search via the Scopus API for similar publications for the content presented in these 19 publications, such that if a researcher wants to know, okay, I have these 19 publications, which other publications might be out there that deal with a similar topic than these 19 publications, then this tool could be used, and you could at least have a look at these 730 publications instead of all the publications that are out there, and it helps you basically in finding the respective keywords that might be important for your search. Finally, to summarize this talk, I not only presented to you the automated extension of the Allotrope Foundation Ontology based on the scientific literature, but also extension of concepts from the text database, annotation of classes, and so on. But however, the governance process is not integrated yet. As you might have noticed, we just did this with the Allotrope Foundation Ontology without having it reviewed yet. Further extensions might be, for example, to use the package ChemData extractor to extract also other data like the turnover frequency number, which is also important for catalytic sciences. With this, I would like to close my talk, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Alexander.